You're listening to Reckless Creatives, a Pipeline Artists original podcast, where Sadie Dean and Jeannie Powerman share the candid truth about the challenges and benefits of living life as artists.
Hey, Reckless Creatives. This is Sadie. Sorry, no Jeannie today, but I can assure you I've got a really special and cool conversation that's about to hit your ears in a minute or two or three or whenever I stop rambling here. I had the great honor of speaking with filmmaker, artist, and musician Spider One. Now, who is Spider One, you might be asking yourself if you're not familiar with this gentleman. Did you ever hear the 90s rock band Powerman 5000? Well, I know my parents did, nonstop in 1999 when I got my hands on their album, When Worlds Collide. That album still rips, as does the band's lead vocalist, Spider One. But this conversation wasn't about music or the fact that he's also Rob Zombie's younger brother, who's also a filmmaker, by the way. It was all about his new horror film, Big Baby, which is now available on demand. It just came out on August 7th, which is pretty cool. And I really wish this had a larger theatrical release, but here we are. At least we still got it. I highly, highly, highly recommend this one for all the artists and specifically all the screenwriters out there listening. This one was made by an artist for artists. He sees us. He is one of us. And it's hilarious. It's gory. It's got everything. It's got a great cast. It's really good. The film is written and directed by Spider One and is produced, stars, and is really greatly edited by his partner, Chrissy Fox. And get this, it's also executive produced by Cher. Yeah, that Cher. So here's a quick snapshot of the film Big Baby. Nightmares of a maniac killer in a baby mask inspire a horror writer's new script. As his life begins to spiral out of control, he discovers Big Baby's murderous rampage may be more than just fiction. Are you hooked? Yeah. And check out the trailer too, which I will put in the show notes as well, with everything else I can think of. But really, this movie it's amazing. Also, if you aren't familiar with Spider One's filmography, I suggest checking out his other films, especially his 2022 horror film Allegoria, which seems like a not so distant cousin to this film and storyline. I had the pleasure of speaking with Spider One when that movie came out back in 2022. And that was a really fun conversation, especially talking about Eddie, the writer, in that film Allegoria. And once you see that movie and Big Baby, you'll see the connection there. All right, so there's a lot of ground we cover in the time we had together, from controlling the narrative to really great advice from Spider One on how to battle your inner critic. And as I mentioned earlier, I'll throw the Big Baby trailer link in the show notes, as well as Spider One's Instagram and whatever else I can think of. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation with filmmaker Spider One about his movie, Big Baby. Be sure to check it out. Enjoy. It's a pleasure to chat with you again. We chatted, 4 years ago, which is crazy.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, okay.
for Allegoria, which I still love that movie, and it's so great. And I feel like there's a nice deep connection back to that film with this story, especially with that writer, Eddie. I'm like, oh, here we go. This is great. I'm feeling it. Well, I'm so thrilled. There's so much to talk about with this movie. We don't have the time that I would love to have to just chat all day about this movie and all the cool things you did and all the cool layers and everything. Let's just start it off with that inner critic as the writer and finding that horror space and how you tapped back into that. What made you go, yeah, I gotta do this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like almost everything I do seems to, in some way or another, struggle with a creative life. You know what I mean? And just because I'm always evaluating my own choices in life and how I got to where I am. And the fact that living a creative life is, it sounds cliche, but it's not really a choice. It's sort of like you have no choice but to do it. And when you try to stop, you realize that you can't. So, making Big Baby was always it was really fun to tackle that idea and obviously take it to an extreme where this guy, Adam Lewis, who's a writer in the movie, is so desperately trying to control the narrative of his story and the narrative of his life and the narrative of his critics. And of course, lesson learned is the more you try to control things, the more they spin out of control. And having made a few films by now, I also became highly aware of modern online criticism. So it was, great to have a character to show how unthoughtful and cruel that can be sometimes for people. And that I think sometimes that, modern criticism maybe forgets there are actually human beings behind this stuff. That, that criticism can really affect. Now, of course, it's a horror movie. So, the luxury to have all that stuff manifest in insane ways is really the fun part of making a movie like Big Baby.
Absolutely. Spoiler, but like that scene where he gets to, have it out with the podcasters. And it's like, yeah, we all wish we could just find that one person, tell him F off, here's some coffee.
So many people that have seen this movie now that are writers or directors or actors, they're like, oh, that's my dream scene. That's me. That's what because you want to reach through and sometimes and have it out or at least discuss, but then you can't, because then that would become your life, and then you would become the character in the movie. It would drive you insane. So you have to learn to be able to put that stuff aside. And the reality is, at the end of the day, if you make something and you truly believe you believe in it and you gave it your best efforts and you made something that you're proud of, and then you can become bulletproof to that stuff. You know what I mean? And obviously art is subjective. So once you realize it's not for everyone, and you shouldn't want it to be for everyone. I think that right. Then you become Walmart, then you're selling toothpaste and toilet paper and clothing. And it's just, you're not, you always want people to love what you do, but there's something reassuring that I think you're doing it right if it's divisive in some way, that some people love it and some people hate it and some people get it and some people don't. I think then at least, you're coming from a specific point of view, that that isn't going to sit right with everyone. I think that's honestly probably a sign of success creatively.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that you could get a rise out of someone, either be good or bad, you're like, oh, I did my job. I made you feel something. It's maybe on the same plane as me, but hey, we're having a conversation.
Yeah, I don't think you ever want to be in the space where it's like, yeah, it was cool. Like just that sort of like, oh man, right. Wow, you have nothing else to like. I'd rather piss somebody off or make someone really excited about it.
Yeah.
I've definitely done both in my career is making films and in music. So
yeah. When you're doing it right, you're doing it right. What I love about this movie, and I, as a filmmaker myself and a writer and all that, is that Big Baby is really that great accountability partner you didn't know you needed and the one that you don't want. And I'm so curious how you navigated that character and your own accountability partner, if you have one. I would assume maybe it is your life partner, and how she kind of helps you kind of like, hey, like get with it, sit down, do the thing, and do it until it kills you, but or don't. But I'm just curious, just like that, I don't know, it just felt like this kind of like fun offhand way of like there's that accountability, but you just had to sit down and you just had to do the thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, ultimately it has to be from yourself, right? The self-motivation is like the most important thing in life, certainly in a creative life, because it's so easy to get distracted, to, not push yourself, to, and I think that is the separation between people who succeed. And when I say succeed, I don't mean become famous or rich or, just succeed in terms of getting something done. You have to motivate yourself. And yeah, sometimes it would be nice to have a hulking 6'5" guy in a baby mask holding a knife to your throat, threatening to kill the people you love to finish this. That would probably be more motivating. But unfortunately, we don't have that in our lives.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you have to become self-motivated. Sometimes I don't, I feel like I'm not ever doing enough. I'm not creating enough. I'm not working hard enough. But then I look back and I'm like, well, really have accomplished quite a bit. And so comparatively to other people sometimes, but yeah, ultimately you always feel like you you could always be doing more. And as you know, writing, it just never, you never know when it's quite done or good enough. And, this movie, it's just now being released, and I went to a screening of it in here in LA the other night, and I'm still seeing things like, man, why didn't I do this? Or why I could have done this? I should have that line. Oh, why did I, and that never ends. So at some point you've just got to walk away, and it is what it is,
It is what it is. But there is some kind of, I don't know, beauty in that, where you can look at something, observe it as the creative, even though you've lived with it for how many hours and years and days, that you go, yeah, okay, I learned something from this. Now I know next time the thing I'm working on, I'll know to do that or not to do that, or hopefully I'm self-aware to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is like you are learning every time you write something, or every time you direct something, every time you make a movie, and you add, for me anyway, I add a checklist of things. Okay, now I need to add this to the process. I need to make sure I'm not doing this enough in a movie. I'm doing this too much. But you have to learn that in front of the public. You know what I mean? It's not like you have the luxury of making 4 movies and just shelf them and no one sees them until you've got it dialed in. You have to make it, put it out there, and see what happens, and be prepared that those early mistakes and those learning curves are going to be viewed by everyone. But there is something really fun about seeing the, sort of naiveness of, it's like when you're young and you're fearless because you just think everything you do is brilliant. And, but that's generally when you kind of do your best stuff. And so as you get older, you try to hang on to that fearlessness of like, well, could fall on my face on this one, but let's just do it anyway, and see what happens.
Yeah. I'm definitely dealing with that now. I'm like, yeah, I just wish I had that spunk and that energy from my early 20s of like, I'm just going to pull an all-nighter. I'm going to do this thing and I don't care. And I'm going to shoot it over there. And the cops come, it's cool, whatever. I'm a student, or I'll make up some story. And now I'm like, no, I have responsibilities and I want to be in bed. And
for sure. And even just the things that you were willing to say, or the way you're willing to behave when you're younger, as you get older, you have more life perspective, so you're more hesitant to maybe, sometimes I look back on even like my paintings and drawings of when I was in my early 20s, and I was like, I've never been better than then, because it was just this fearlessness, and now you tread a little more cautiously. And so you really have to fight that the more work you do, you have to be prepared, like, to no, we can keep going. We can push this. We can, it's just, it's an interesting battle that always happens between the more you do to maintain that energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk about the wonderful Chrissy Fox, and she's doing so many cool things in this movie, both as an editor and as an actress. And her character, I think, is one of the coolest characters besides Babyface, obviously. But like, she's doing so many cool things, so many like things that you're just like, wait, what? Wait. Like, you're kind of caught off guard. And I'm not going to do any spoilers in this. But I'd love to talk just about that process with you as, writer, director, with her as an actress, but also as her as an editor, and what you guys are doing to like manipulate what's going on now on stream, because maybe you didn't get the shot, or you did, or you're like, I don't know, think we need that beat now, or hey, we could add these 3 beats because if you have this look in your eyes now, and we can make this really work and twist things around.
Yeah, I mean, well, for her, obviously for her character, it was almost the toughest character to figure out, because she had to be sort of the heart and the groundedness of the film, because obviously we had Adam, our writer, who's, going off the rails and, and sort of are guiding us through the madness. But we needed that balance of a character, but we also didn't want it to just be the, one-dimensional, oh, she's the girlfriend that is supportive. And, so it was really fun to work in these almost suspicious layers to her, where you're in even Big Baby, and no spoiler, at one point tries to convince Adam that she's not on his side, you know? And so I think there was always these lingering beats in certain scenes where you're like, well, is she really like as sweet and supportive as she seems? And so that when that leads us to the finale, which I won't give away, but like it even brings up more questions. So it was really fun to do that, and she did such a great job, like being able to portray that and not just keep it one beat. And I think that character has been really resonating with a lot of people, because it would have been very easy to just write it off as she's just sort of there as stuff happens to him. You know what I mean? But she becomes very important in. You can tell that there's a loving relationship there that's crumbling, which is also like beyond the horror movie aspects. So that's sort of the tragedy of the movie when you get glimpses of them in the good times, and then as it starts to fall apart because of his manic insanity with this situation, that hopefully the audience is like, oh, really invested in these two people now. So that was a great challenge, and I think Chrissy was finally like happy to be in a movie where she didn't have to look like she had been on a she's like, you always make me look so terrible. Now I finally get to look good in a movie. Like,
right.
But I mean, the editing process is really it's easier than you might think, because we work on these movies so closely together, and she's there from page one of this, like, oh, read this. I wrote 5 pages. And then there was a lot of conversations about the tone and the tempo and the, just sort of the overall feeling we want people to have when they're watching a particular scene, that she gets it. It's not like it's starting from scratch. And,
right.
We're both come from music background. So I think that really helps in sort of like just the feeling of when to move on, when to have something linger. And, so it's fun, I mean, I generally like back off, like, she usually takes the footage and gets scenes like 85% there, 90% there. And then I'll step in, because I think there's such a trust there between the both of us. And very rarely are there, maybe when we're getting down to the final tweaks, there might be some push and pull, because you have to make hard choices, Yeah. You have a movie, and, the first cut is usually, going to be like too long and over 2 hours. And you got to start, well, this was cool on the day, but, we got to lose it. But I'm usually pretty easy about that. I'm sometimes fighting to get rid of more stuff than she is. So, but, and then, her being an actor, and, she's really good at being thoughtful about performance first, so there may be moments where we choose, there might even be like a minor technical, bump or something, but the performance is so strong, we're going to go with that ahead of the camera move was a little cleaner in this one, you know what I mean? So yeah. So all those things go into the overall decisions, but it's the process is honestly usually pretty smooth, which is great, when there's no screaming matches about, this is not what I wanted. No,
but there is such that's such a great, I don't know, tool to have for her, especially just to kind of like be able to remove yourself from actor or, whatever it is, to then edit and then be like, okay, I could see myself. I could watch my performance and know what's working and not working. And it's always like in service of story, which is very hard.
I know from her conversations that it's harder. Like this one may have been more difficult because she's playing, sort of quote unquote, a more normal role,
right.
So it's probably seeing yourself more in it than, as opposed to something like Little Bites, our last movie, where she is just like so outside of herself. I think that is easier to observe, feels like, oh, that's not really me,
Right.
But the Kate character, of all the things we've done, is probably the closest to her as a person in real life. So I think that could make it a challenge for sure.
Yeah, for sure. A little cool thing, not really cool, it's actually really big and it's cool for those who are familiar with Burbank and what was on Magnolia, Dark Delicacies and Seeing Del have a cameo in there. So cool. I loved seeing him. I used to work at a brick and mortar called the Writer's Store, which is right next door. So I would see him every day in his little lovely wife.
I bought some paper there once or something.
Yeah. Paper and Brads. We had it all. And yeah, it's just so cool to see Del. It's just like the guy does not age. He's timeless, and he's perfect for this.
Well, he's a wizard, you know. He
is.
Yeah, Del. I mean, that scene is actually shot in Dark Delicacies. I mean, and we went in and sort of relit it and rearranged some things, and we're like, Del, like, it looks so much cooler. You should have it like this all the time. But, yeah, we were so happy to be able to, be able to shoot that in there. It was only maybe a month later that they shut the doors, after how many years, I don't know. And and we make, note to, there's a scene in Big Baby where Kate says she was out shopping on Magnolia, so we just have some nice nods to our local surroundings.
Yeah. I love it. I'd love to talk about just the art of making a movie. And I feel like the big key to that is finding your tribe. And, first, comes the love of it and the crafts that you spent years building, but really finding your people. And outside of Chrissy Fox, who is fantastic in everything she does, but you're a DP. You collaborate with this guy a lot, Andy. And I'd love to talk about just the choices you guys made, because it doesn't feel like a true gritty horror film. There's some lightness and airiness to it as Adam kind of starts evolving or devolving in the story, and just kind of there's like this beautiful simplicity to it of just the angles and the shots you're doing, and just letting the actors do their thing, but also, building on that horror and what does work and how the editing comes into play in your sound design. And I just love to talk about, those conversations you were having with Andy to really just paint that picture and let you guys just have fun with it. Yeah.
I mean, I worked with Andy on everything, and which is true with all of our crew members. I mean, we've essentially maintain the same crew for every movie, which is really great because you develop such a shorthand. And, I think Andy knows sometimes before asking what I'm going to say no to, what I'm going to say yes to. And so, over the course of 4 movies now, you learn a lot about each other. But, I think for me, the main conversations are always about a progression in a movie of, from shot selection being somewhat normalized to, as things change, subtly framing changes and angles change and, speed of the camera, all this stuff that, and sometimes, you don't want to overdo it. I don't, I think that sometimes being over stylized can be really distracting. So, if you're having a simple dinner conversation, for me, there's no need to get in the way of that by like having the camera spinning on the ceiling or something. It just sort of like, I notice that a lot. Sometimes people like we're circling the people. And it's like, why are we doing this? Like, I just kind of want to focus in on what these people are saying. Right. So sometimes it's really as simple as like, let's get a great performance and not distract with what the camera is doing. And then other times it's all about what the camera is doing in terms, there's a scene in Big Baby that, again, not giving away anything, but right following a scene where Adam witnesses something horrible happen, he returns home, and I made a very specific choice to sort of have the camera and lens choice be such a way that it distorts Adam, and it feels like he, very claustrophobic, like we're almost in his head. The camera is literally inches from his face when we were shooting, and so his head becomes warped, and it just gives you a really uneasy feeling. And then coupled with that, when we went to edit, we didn't edit it in a traditional conversation way where it goes back and forth. It's just stays on him, and we hear Kate's dialogue off screen until eventually we break and we cut to her in a really isolated looking shot where she's center frame. There's all this room around. She feels very alone. And, you can tell like this is the moment where she's now feeling really alone and disconnected from the person she thought she was close to. So things like that become important. If we had just done that in a normal, medium close up back, and it wouldn't have felt as off-putting. So, yeah. So it's like those kind of things that, and, you have to be prepared that, well, not even prepared. You have to cross your fingers and hope that this actually works because there's no other option. I will make choices sometimes like we're going to do it this way. And there's no other, we don't have like the backup safety net shot. Like this is it. And if this doesn't work, we're either reshooting this later on, because we don't, we're shooting these movies really fast. They're not,
Right.
We don't have the luxury of like, we'll go back and get it next month. So there's a lot of those things that they're definitely big swings and chances, but when they do pay off, you're like, man, so glad we did it that way,
Yeah. Do you feel like when you guys have that kind of pressure, like, hey, this is like, we're doing this in one take, hypothetically, let's just go for it. Like people are just like, all right, we're bringing our A game, even more so because we just want to make sure we get this. And and does it work?
Yeah, I think I love that. I mean, I love that, and sometimes that's knowing that you are going to have a lot of moments like that on set. It really becomes important that you are hiring the right crew and casting the right actors, and that people are prepared and I'm prepared, or if something isn't working, that I'm prepared to make a change immediately and trust your instincts to move it in a different direction. And that happens too. Sometimes you start shooting something like you just know in your gut, like this is not working. And I have to figure out immediately what we're going to change to make it work. And so, but that's the fun of doing it. I mean, that's what makes it exciting. If it was all, by the numbers and, I don't storyboard stuff. I don't, unless it's a very maybe specific action sequence. And even then maybe I'll make some notes. But, I think making these movies certainly independent like this, where you don't always know what you're going to do until you get there on the day. You don't have a bunch of rehearsal days. You're not building sets. You're shooting in real houses and real locations, and you have to figure it out on the day, almost up to the moment. Like, Andy, like, what are we doing in this? Where are we going?
Right.
I have people doing. They're going to be here. The camera comes in. We're going to shoot this way. Then we're going to go this way, and then you just got to kind of have that ability to figure it out almost instantly. Because you don't have time to go, I don't know. What do you think? There's never, I will never utter that word on set. What do you think? Then you're doomed.
Yeah, you're doomed. And I'd added, pay respects to your wonderful EPs that people I'm sure would not associate with any kind of horror film space, which is Chaz Bono and Cher, and just again that family tribe of filmmakers with you to make things happen it's such a gift, and so cool to just keep it going.
Yeah. It's always makes me laugh when people see like the trailer and then Cher's name put in. People, what? Like, did I read that right? And I still think that same way. Like, what? Like, how did this? But yeah, I mean, it's a very weird. Life is weird, and it brings you to weird places and meeting people you never imagined in a million years you'd get to meet. And so that's been super exciting, and we love them. And yeah, it's been amazing.
Any advice for the creatives with that inner critic that they're trying to battle away? Like how should they overcome it other than the obvious, which is murder? But
yeah, don't do that. I mean, I would allude it back, or reference back to something I sort of said earlier, which is I think like no one likes to hear negative things about what you do, but if you truly are doing what you love and you truly believe in what you did and you did your best efforts, and then if someone says something negative about it, it doesn't mean you still can't be considerate and see there may be some truth in it, but it won't hurt because you've done I think negative criticism only hurts when you either maybe agree with it or you felt like I didn't really give it or you're trying to please some other or you think you're trying to please the masses, and you just sort of like aren't doing what you really, really want to do. I mean, I've always said like I would rather just live in my car than serve. I've just never been that kind of person that wants to. Their main goal is to please everyone, and I think that's just why I probably fell in love with horror movies and science fiction and comic books and punk rock and all that, because it was all subversive. It was anti-establishment stuff. It made, did it to make people feel uncomfortable, So yeah, I think if you are writing and direct anything, painting, and you have to, you are ultimately doing it for other people because you want, I think that is what a big part of art is it is a just to hold it to yourself is sort of pointless. So I think there is something about sharing it that's really important, but you have to make sure that you're really being true to yourself, and because then it's okay if you fail. It's okay if someone doesn't like it. And also, I know I'm blabbing on and on also, but be prepared that, like we said before, I think it's actually a good thing if someone doesn't like it, because then it means you're actually having a point of view and an opinion that is specific. And if you do something specific, then it is not for everyone. And I think that is a badge of honor that we all should remind ourselves that it's okay. Because, if somebody watches one of my movies and their favorite movie is, I don't know, Fast and the Furious, right? Like that to them is the pinnacle of like, that's what then it makes sense that they may not love this, you know what I mean? And that's okay, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And then if that doesn't work, just dump coffee on their heads and go on with your day.
Right. Well, Spider-One, thank you for the movie. Thanks for the conversation. I hope I get to chat with you on the next one.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah. See you on the next one.
Have a good one.
Reckless Creatives is a Pipeline Artist original podcast. Like, subscribe, and follow us on social media at Pipeline Artists. And find more info at pipelineartists.com/listen. Until next time, stay reckless.